Okay, so let me start the introduction from my own end. So my name is Abdulganiyu Onabanjo. I did the first 2 years diploma in entrepreneurship innovation. Then after then I joined Dalhousie University just when the pandemic started, but it been tough a lot because of the pandemic. But just to extend the 2 years, another 2 years in Dalhousie for entrepreneurship innovation, major in entrepreneurship innovation, and that is actually my second degree, all the way from. I had my first degree in Nigeria, so here I am, just one of our projects. So, all right.
Great. Nice to meet you. Like I said, I give you an A for persistence. Used all means available to reach out. So it all paid off in the end. So good for you. So here we are today. All right. Thanks for that introduction. Right. Let's go to I guess your next teammates then.
I can start. So I'm. Oh, you go ahead. Go ahead.
You can go first.
Okay, I'll go. So I'm Sam. I'm in my second year of management. I haven't picked my major yet, but yeah, this is just a course that was part of my program. So I'm taking it, and I'm just interested in hearing from you. So.
Okay. All right. Nice to meet you, Sam.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Oh, hi. My name is Chuhan, and I come from China. Yeah.
Nice.
And it is my third year in Dalhousie, and I also manage my students. And me and our groupmate were very interested in you and your business. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Nice to meet you, Shushan.
And my name is Youssef.
Okay.
I come from Egypt. I studied for 2 years in Egypt. Then I came to Dal for 2 other years and for transfer purposes. And right now I'm in the 3rd year. And I'm also very interested in your business and your innovations.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Nice to meet you all. So just a little bit of clarification. So I know after 2 years, some of you transferred over. So is this like a graduate degree, or this is an undergraduate degree, or this is one of those courses that both graduate students and undergraduate students take?
It's an undergrad class.
Yeah.
It's an undergrad class?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. All right, great. Nice to meet you all. So maybe a little bit, since you all have introduced yourselves, I'll just give you like a brief intro. So my name is Achenyo, and I am the founder of MitiMeth. It's a social enterprise based in Nigeria. And it's an enterprise that I founded back in 2011. So we're going on 10 years now. We work primarily with local communities. We work with an environmental menace called water hyacinth. And what we're doing is actually creating value from this water hyacinth. So in essence, creating an artisan economy that revolves around the transformation of water hyacinth. So we're doing, what we're doing is actually twofold. So we're tackling an environmental problem, and then we're also essentially creating job opportunities in situ within the communities that are affected by the infestation of the water hyacinth. So that's essentially, the foundation of what we're doing. Now, along the way, we have, veered off into working with other natural fibers, and I'm sure that would come out during the course of the interview. But glad to be here. I would admit I do have a tight schedule, but anything that has to do with academics and working with students, I make that a priority as well. So happy to be here to spend time with you and answer questions that you might have in regards to this project that you're working on.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Achenyo. So let me just be able to know how to call you better? Because we are from Nigeria. I'm in Nigeria, I know. So people try to know, they don't know the difference between our our first name and last name. So I just wanted to know, what should we call you better? Is it Achenyo, or how we should call it? Thank you.
No, that's all right. So, you know, and of course, all of you, yes, Abdul and I are Nigerians, but at the end of the day, both of, all of you are working in a North American institution. You're based in Canada. And I know that things, interactions tend to be less formal in regards to, titles and prefixes and all of that. So feel free to call me by my first name, which is Achenyo. My last name is a compound last name, which is Idachaba Obara.
Okay, thank you very much. So first, I'm gonna start with my own question, and we actually, as in like we said, we celebrate you a lot, and we've seen what you are doing. Then when I went through your story on when I went through your background on Wiki, then I also listened to your TED Talk, which actually have 1.9 million views. And I think I've added my own view to it. And a lot of people, I send it to people to also check it out, that what you are doing. So, and what interests me most and what strikes me most is I read that you were born in America. And from there, you decided to move from America while you are actually working with one of the biggest company in America, and you decided to come to Nigeria to start doing what you are doing. And that struck me a lot. I just want to know, what is the inspiration behind that and why you just decided to go that way?
Okay, all right. So very good question. And the background information that's provided on Wiki sort of puts me in like this situation where, yes, I do have to explain what's going on there. So yes, you're indeed right. I was born in the US. My parents were there. I'm going to date myself here, in the 60s. So I was actually born there, spent my early years there, and then my parents moved back to Nigeria. So I do have some grounding in Nigeria as well. I tend to call myself like a bicultural individual, where I've been exposed to life in the US, and then I've also been exposed to life in Nigeria as well. So I did go to primary, secondary, and did my first degree in Nigeria, actually. So I've spent, within that time frame, what would you call it, about maybe 15 years in Nigeria before now moving back, as I'll call it, a young adult, back to the US. And then I spent almost 20 years at a stretch in the US. And it was while I was in the US, so I came back to the US and went to graduate school. And when I finished from graduate school, ended up working in corporate America, actually in 2 different sectors. So I have an IT background. That was my undergrad and my first graduate degree. So I worked in that space, as a programmer analyst. And then I decided to go back to business school, decided to go to business school. And after business school, now moved into the oil and gas, the energy sector, which I now spent, almost 11 years. And it was during the course of my working there that I now, decided I was going to quit my job and then return to Nigeria. And it wasn't something that necessarily happened overnight. So given that, I had foundational years as well as an upbringing in Nigeria, there was always that tug within me. And the interesting thing is that I'm speaking with, I'm not sure where Sam is from originally.
Ottawa.
You're from Ottawa?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So you are the Canadian in our midst. All right, so I have Chuhan, who's from China. I have Youssef, who's originally from Egypt. And then I have Abdul, who's originally from Nigeria. So we have an international group here. So for me, there was a pull and an interest to, at some point in my life, return to Nigeria, because I felt that, oh, I would like to contribute to the development of the country. After all, it is the country of my heritage. You know, the time just came, you know, as in I just got to a point where I decided if I didn't make the move when I did, the likelihood of my returning to Nigeria was going to be very, very slim. So that I now decided, okay, now is the time to do it. Otherwise I won't do it. And then I took the leap of faith and moved back to Nigeria in 2009. So it was a desire that had always been there. I felt that, you know, that there was a lot that could be done in Nigeria. Not that there isn't a lot that can be done in the US as well. And I certainly had a great experience there professionally and personally. But I felt that, you know, perhaps my skills and my talents were needed more back in Nigeria. So that was part of the impetus that led me to make that decision.
My question is just, so when you went back to Nigeria, did you already have in mind the innovation that you're about to proceed with?
Interesting question. No, I didn't. So one thing I did know when I left the US was that I wasn't going to necessarily go back into the oil and gas sector. I wanted to do something that was related to the environment and improving the environment. So that was what was in the back of my mind. So I identified a particular sector. So, I mean, I was looking at alternative energies. These were things that I was exposed to while working in the energy industry. So I decided, okay, I wanted to do something that had to do with renewables, the green economy. And I returned to Nigeria and started doing consulting work. So I was working with academics in the university on various projects, and specifically looking at waste recovery and utilization. So it's very broad, but that was essentially my focus area: waste recovery, waste management, waste recovery, and utilization. And then I zeroed in on municipal solid waste. So I was looking at, okay, what things can we do within this space? Let's look at, you know, landfill gas to energy opportunities. We have a lot of waste in our cities that have high populations. You know, what are the opportunities there? So that's sort of how I started. Mm-hmm. And what I am doing now, I believe, evolved from that. I tell folks that because I was already in this mindset of waste recovery and utilization and identifying opportunities within that space, when I came across the water hyacinth on the waterways, it now became a question of, okay, I can see this thing is obviously a problem because, you know, the water is covered in these dense mat of foliage, and that really shouldn't be the case. And we have all these fishing boats that are hemmed in, which ought to be plying the waterways. There ought to be fishing folks doing their stuff. That's not happening. So there was obviously a problem. And the question was, okay, how can we now transform this situation around? And that's how the innovation came to be. So when people, you know, another way of answering your question in a succinct manner is to say that what I'm doing with MitiMeth now is a tangible expression of the message that was being preached on waste recovery and utilization. So instead of it now being a theoretical exercise that we were doing with the academics, this is now one of those practical expressions of how that can actually come to be. Does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Okay. Right, good.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am very interested in what area do you think your business has changed the most? Maybe the local environment or local economic development? Because I saw some information or background. I saw you hold some handcraft innovation workshop in your rural community, and to let the women and youth to use local source to create opportunity. So do you think, yeah.
Okay, all right, so very good question. So I think it's actually two ways. So from an educational standpoint and creating awareness of the benefits of utilizing renewable resources. That is new. When we typically go out into these communities and we do our sensitization workshops, asking people what they're using the fiber for, or how it even, what their perceptions are. So it's more like a perception exercise. What are your perceptions of this weed that you have in your environment? And in 100% of the cases, people respond, it's of no use to us. It's a hindrance, it's a problem. We can't go about doing our daily, activities. It's obstructing this. It's just not good. So it's always negative, 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 right? And when we come in, it's good to understand what those perceptions are, because ultimately we're trying to change those perceptions. So once we understand where the communities are in terms of their thought process, we're then able to sort of work with that and help them to see things differently. So that's why I come in with, it starts with an education and an awareness. So once we have that, we now begin to demonstrate to them through products that we have that actually this thing can be converted into something useful. And we show them, the end products, the finished products that have been made from this fiber. And in most cases, there's that skepticism, as well as disbelief that, you can actually take this plant and make something like this. And that's where we come in, okay, we're going to have a workshop. And during the course of this workshop, you are actually going to learn the skills to convert this green plant into this good, this functional product or this decorative good. And that's how it starts. So it's an awareness. And then the essence of us doing this is so that there can be an economic benefit to the community. So yes, you're clearing the waterways. It gives you an incentive. Once you can see that there is a useful value, there's use, so utilitarian value to the resource, then the incentive for people to actually clear the weeds then exists. So there's an economic driver as well. To them, it doesn't matter, you can't come to them with just an environmental story that, oh, it would be nice really if you clear the waterway so that you can navigate. Yes, they do a little bit of that so that they can do what they have to do in terms of movement. But if there's no economic incentive, there really is no push for them to do more. So there's an economic driver to that, and that economic driver is helping people to see that you can actually create products that have value and can be sold in the marketplace. So there's an economic driver, and people do realize that. We have trained over 600 individuals to date.
Wow.
And
did you say 600?
Yeah, 600. So we've trained 600 artisans. Ooh. And then in terms of the number that we actually have working with our supply chain or working within our supply chain, we have about 150.
Wow.
Oh, wow. God.
So, and these 150, at least, they're getting wages transferred to them. Now, about 130 or so of them, or about 140, are actually home-based. So these artisans, we don't take them out of their community. They actually work within their community. So the jobs are within their local environment. So they're home-based artisans. And once they're done, we take offtake from them. And then, transfer wages to them. So it's providing decent work. And again, since I think you're talking about, I think the SDGs may have been referenced in what you're doing, may have been. But if you were to tie this to the Sustainable Development Goals, which we do, we tie what we're doing to the Sustainable Development Goals, you have, I think it's SDG 8, which talks about economic growth and decent work. So that is definitely an aspect that we tackle with the artisan economy that we've created.
Okay.
And I was gonna ask how many people work at MitiMeth, but you said about 150.
Yeah, so a portion of that is, so we have about 10 full-time, and then the rest are home-based artisans.
And is MitiMeth involved in any other type of community building other than creating jobs?
That pretty much is it. So we do these workshops, and then, you know, we empower them to be producing communities or producing artisans. And that's essentially, you know, our focus is to build thriving, producing communities and, you know, create products that are sustainable, that are eco-friendly. So
that's great in itself, of course.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you very much, Achenyo. And my second question we actually go to, because I could remember maybe the same, I think it was 2009 that you said you saw the leaf cluster or the waterway and things like that. Because I listened to your TED talk, I think maybe like 3 or 4 times, and I saw where you mentioned that it was 2009 that and I could remember vividly that was also 2009 also. Maybe if you're going all the way from Lagos, from the mainland to island, from that before you get to Akpogon Bridge, just by your right hand side, then there's a naval barracks that, it's called naval base. There's a naval base. So where they packed all their ship, all their warship and things like that. And there's also some that like a shipping boats, like shipping. So I could remember that, I think it was that 2008 or 2009 thereabout, the whole of this leaf cluster all around everywhere. That day disturbed the whole, the ship could not even move. It disrupted business activities on that day. And that was, to me, I just look at it that for you to pick that, as I saw that as a problem, and everybody started blaming the government. Can you imagine what is happening? Can you see what the government has done? They could not clear the waterway. So you could actually pick that. And that was what actually one of the things that struck me about this, because I could remember that seeing that, so you could pick that as a way to actually turn it into a business. I look at all the pictures of your product. They are awesome. They are amazing. So I'm even interested in buying some of them, as in like, as in they are amazing. So for you to turn that problem into a business activity that can actually benefit everyone is a great work on your own part. So I just like the question Sam has actually asked, that how were you able to like now, because I know going into those water to get the leaf is a kind of a lot, because there's a moldy area or a swamp area that how do you actually, do you use a machine or do you use manpower, or how do you are able to get all those things out of the water?
Okay, so very good question. So the harvesting of the water hyacinth, which is essentially the first step, the harvesting is actually done manually by the locals within those areas. So, for them and the water are like, a pea in a pod. They're very used to the, life by the water, on the water, in the water. So it's the local communities, the riverine communities that are actually involved in the harvesting process and the drying process, and then ultimately in the weaving process as well. So we use everyone that has anything to do with the fiber downstream is actually within the local community.
Do you only use the Korodu area, or do you have other areas? Is it only Korodu?
Oh no, we have several other areas. So we've carried out training in several parts of the country. The artisans that we work with right now, we have, artisans that were originally from Ikorodu. We also have artisans that we work with in Kogi State, which is the north central part of Nigeria. The water hyacinth is prevalent on the River Niger. And one thing that I do need to mention about the water hyacinth is that it's a freshwater plant. So it thrives in fresh water, especially if those waters are also provided with the nutrients, the polluted nutrients that the plant needs to thrive. So we work with artisans in Kogi State, we work with artisans in Ogun State, and then we also work with artisans in Delta State. So the artisans are in different parts, especially those in the riverine communities are in different parts of the country. And they're the ones that just get in and manually harvest the water hyacinth. Now, talking about government intervention, you said, oh, when this problem occurred, and it's a recurrent problem because we've had this water hyacinth infestation problem since the mid-80s. It's a very territorial weed. It's an invasive weed as well. So once the seeds have been introduced into the waters, it simply proliferates. And yes, government does have a role to play in ensuring that, the waters are navigable, the waters are safe. And along those lines, in fact, one of our partners right now is the Lagos State Waterways Authority. So they're responsible for regulating the waterways, ensuring that, people can navigate on the waterways in a safe manner. Water hyacinth is a hindrance and an obstruction. So for them, it was a no-brainer for them to say, okay, let's partner with this organization because they have seen a beneficial use to this plant. They can work with the communities so that the communities can see that there's an incentive in actually transforming the fiber. So there you can see an instance where a private and a public partnership makes sense, right? Because it's a win-win situation for both. We have lots of, Nigeria is a very populous country, right? So we have lots of hands. So we might as well put those hands, especially the hands in the rural areas, put them to work when they're not doing other things. And that's why most of the harvesting that we're doing is manual. There are mechanical options as well, but one thing that has been a problem with the mechanical harvesting is the maintenance of those machines. So machines have been brought in, machines have broken down. So it always ends up being you have to go the manual route because the machines are just not sustainable. We don't necessarily have a good maintenance culture here. So it just makes sense, use what you have where you are. And people that are familiar with the waters.
Okay, interesting. And do anyone have other questions?
I had a question. I was just wondering what the biggest struggles were at the beginning of the process of implementing this innovation.
Okay, so the first challenge was the knowledge. The knowledge to actually create. So for me, I mentioned what my background was. So this was a complete swing into the creative economy. So what that entailed was I had a vision of where I saw this going. I knew I wanted to work within the handicraft space because I felt that, okay, this would be a skill that could be easily transferred. It doesn't require, a high level of literacy or technical expertise with the communities that I'll be working with. But I also needed to get to the point whereby I understood how to actually do the transformation myself. So I had to go through a learning curve and training as well, so that I would be in a good position to train the communities down the line. So the first challenge was actually acquiring the knowledge that I was hoping to eventually transfer. And that, because there wasn't necessarily anyone that was working within the space, so it was very novel. I had to look for proxies, as in, okay, what is the closest to this fiber that I want to transform? Is there any work that is being done similar? And so I took proxies and used the resources, people that were working with these proxy fibers, so to speak, to now transfer their knowledge to me. So it was sort of an indirect way of getting what I wanted. Other producers that we're working with, or other types of fibers. Then the second, so you go through the skills acquisition stage, which it was for me. Then the second aspect was actually getting buy-in. Like I mentioned, going to the communities in and of itself, people are already skeptical. But for you to now say, okay, I want to create this model. I have this model in mind that I want to execute or implement. There has to be some proof of concept that this was actually going to work. And in order for that to happen, especially since I was sort of going against the grain, I had to create prototypes of, what I felt this material could be used for. And the prototypes, after creating the prototypes, you obviously have to take the prototypes to market to see whether anybody is actually going to part with their money with this thing that you've created. So you might think it's the best thing since sliced bread, and the market would be like, no, it isn't. So one had to now take that proof of concept to market. And I did that by going to an exhibition that was specifically focused on arts and culture, because I felt that would be a good place for us to actually present or do a soft launch of the prototypes. And it was actually that event that I guess boosted my confidence. The sales that I made were pittance, but the fact that people would take the product and look at it, and they would, one thing that I did from the very beginning as well was also ensure that there was always a tag that told the story of the product, so that people would understand they're not just looking at a woven table tidy. They were looking at a woven table tidy that is made from water hyacinth, which is an invasive aquatic weed, and it is woven by people in the communities that are affected by the infestation. So people actually picking up the product and reading that label, studying the product and saying, this is quite interesting, and actually dropping money to pay for it was a big confidence booster, and certainly affirmed my belief that, yes, indeed, I was onto something. So, those were some of the initial challenges. And of course, it has not been a quick process. So it's been quite slow. I started from ground zero. So mistakes made along the way. In a lot of ways, I feel as if I haven't moved as fast as I would have loved to move. But it's been an interesting learning experience as well. So that's it. I wish we were much bigger than we are right now, but this is the case of slow but steady. That's sort of where we are right now. But market access is also a big one. The handmade economy is a huge market. I mean, it's a $32 billion per year market. However, if we look at the fraction of sales that are actually being generated in Nigeria from that, it's negligible. And what we're saying is, okay, 65% of this $32 billion actually comes from developing economies. That's where most of the artisan economies are. We just want a fraction of that, because we know that a fraction of that is certainly going to have ripple effects, positive ripple effects within the communities that we have here. So market linkages, market access, getting people to buy into what we're doing, which they are, but then it now becomes a case of how do you scale what you're doing? Is this more of a business to consumer or direct to consumer model we want to adopt, or is it business to business? We have focused for a long time on direct to consumer, but the needle movers are actually with business to business. And that's what we have, we've learned painfully over the years. So we're trying to look at how we can, modify our strategy to ensure that, yes, we are moving the needle the way we ought to.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so, and I think I just need to know some few questions about what year was the business established, if you could precisely.
Okay, yeah, so the business was registered in 2011.
Okay.
We did, the work actually did not start in 2011. So it was registered as a business in 2011 because I felt, based on the response to the prototype development and the sales outreach we had done, that this could be a viable business. It was now registered in 2011, but there was a work that went on, the year prior. So I call 2010 my R&D year.
Okay. 2010 for the R&D here. So
yes.
Then the number of employee, you mentioned 150 as an employed that you work.
They're home-based. Okay, so full-time employees are 10. And then we have home-based artisans, which are more like contract artisans, supplying us. So they are about 150 or thereabouts.
Okay, so
140.
Do you have a particular quote which actually describe your innovation?
Quote?
Yeah, that describe your innovation.
Oh, yeah. So I'm sort of going to paraphrase it. It's actually, and I think it's more of a personal quote for me, and not necessarily business, focus specifically on the business itself. But it's actually a quote by Maya Angelou, who was an African-American poet.
Right.
And she said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that pursue the things that you love and do those things very well. Your consideration should not be for fame or fortune, but if you pursue the things that you like with a passion and you do them very well, the fame and the fortune would come, would eventually come. So that's sort of paraphrasing it, but that's the gist of that particular quote. So that's from Maya Angelou, and I can tell, from my journey, I can tell you that, of course, it was not a cakewalk at all, and entrepreneurship in and of itself is not a cakewalk. There are lots of detours and diversions along the way. There are ups and downs, but you just need to be very resilient, very tenacious, and very focused as well. Very focused. If you believe in what you're doing, just go for it. Of course, you seek advice along the way to make sure that you're also hearing from people who, and this could be your mentors, people who have gone before you, maybe not necessarily in your field, but have gone before you, so that they can provide you with advice and guidance as you go along. But it is a very rewarding and fulfilling journey. It has been for me as an employer of labor. No matter how hard I have to fight to meet payroll, at the end of the day, when I am doing those bank transfers, there is that sense of accomplishment. That's okay. You have actually impacted a life. You have made a difference in this person's journey as well. So Maya Angelou's quote is one, and then there's another one by Longfellow. He said, do the things that you can do well, and do well the things that you can do. So it's all about, that's essentially what success is all about. It's doing what you can do very well, and doing well whatever it is that your hands find to do.
So you made mention of, oh, sorry, you want to say something, Sam?
No. I was just about to say that those two quotes have been very influential in my my journey.
Interesting. So, and I think you made mention that the salary base has been up and down and things like that. And one of the things I actually want to point out that due to COVID-19, since it started, have you been coping with did you get any support or from the government or things like that? Or?
No. So there was no support. And the 2020 was a challenging year, not just for me, but as you can imagine, for a lot of businesses. And what we're doing, is not what you will call essential services or an essential product. We're not making face masks. We're not making protective gear. Yeah. So it's not one of those essential things. We're making stuff that people who have discretionary income would buy. But having said that, because a number of people are sheltering in place, and I'm seeing your different apartments from where I am right now, we're having a Zoom call. So most people, that are sheltering in place now realize that, oh, you know what, then my home office needs to be jazzed up, so to speak. So we are also trying to capitalize on the So welcome back. So despite up here, we of anyone, we did not salaries were paid even during the lockdown months and what have you. The only way we were able to accomplish this is because, we have bootstrapped. We have not been flamboyant or extravagant in our spending. Whatever money we have made over the years, we have plowed back into the business. So we had cash reserves. So it was essentially like saving for a rainy day or saving during the time of plenty for a period of famine. And that's essentially what happened and what was able to get us through the past year. So what we're trying to do right now is see, okay, things have picked up a little bit. The economy isn't back to what it was before. Let us see how we can boost those cash reserves, which we depleted quite significantly during the past year.
Oh, interesting. So, and may I ask my team, and is anyone, because we have 7 minutes left, yeah, so we can quickly, if anyone have any questions, so let me just, let us ask so that before I ask my last question.
I don't have any questions left.
Okay. Chuhan?
Yeah, I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask what your most exciting or your favorite part about doing your job is.
I would say the most important part about my job is actually working with my team. I derive great pleasure in that. And then also watching how they have grown over the years, just in terms of responsibilities, in terms of their own, beefing up their own knowledge about the business and being able to entrust people, delegate, and know that, yes, they're going to be able to carry out these assignments or these jobs quite well. When I started, I didn't start with a large team. I started with, it was myself, and then I had one employee. And then after a while, I was now able to hire additional resources as a result of the grant that I received. So I had additional resources. So it's just watching how one has grown over the years that has definitely given me some sense of accomplishment, and then working with my team. And then also, of course, working with, I mean, I'm talking about my team here, my full-time staff. And then also looking at the people that we work with within the communities. You know, once that light bulb, you know, once they've had that eureka moment, that light bulb moment, we actually have an opportunity to, you know, make a difference with the resources we have here. It gives me a great sense of joy and fulfillment that we're leaving the place better than how we met it. Even if they choose not to pursue that craft, they're no worse off than they were when we came in, but they have learned something new. And I believe, you know, our journey, our various journeys in life it's a lifelong journey of learning. So to the extent that we can contribute to that learning process, I feel very privileged and blessed to be a part of it.
And I really like the quote you put on the website where you teach the people who are getting trained how to fish.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Fish for life and not just for feeding them for a day.
Thank you. So one of my two last questions is that when have you had an exceptional partnership, and what makes it an exceptional partnership?
Okay, so I will tell you that over the years, every single partnership that we've had has been exceptional in the sense that it has always brought something to the table that we did not have. So we have partnered with, you know, public institutions. We have partnered with private institutions as well. Please, can we just pause for a moment?
Okay.
I have a staff member that's trying to reach me, so just pause. Let me pause for a moment.
Okay.
How you're going to solve the world's most pressing challenges. So I don't know if you want to go the social entrepreneurship route, which is essentially what I did. I didn't realize I was a social entrepreneur, by the way, when I started. It was after, you know, while I was into it, that people now started throwing around these terms that, oh, this is what you are. And I was like, okay, and then started looking up the definition of what a social entrepreneur was. But when I started out, it wasn't necessarily that I started out wanting to be a social entrepreneur. I started out wanting to solve a problem. I saw a problem in my community and I wanted to solve it. And I think entrepreneurs, whether you're a social entrepreneur or you're a traditional entrepreneur, what you're doing at the end of the day is you're trying to meet a need. It could be a societal problem, a social problem, or economic problem that you're trying to solve. Or it could be, oh, you know what, I want to, you know, fill this gap, you know, I want to, if you want to make phones or whatever, or come up with the latest technology for the latest phone, you know, you're trying to, you know, solve a problem that perhaps people didn't even know they had. So there's one that's very prevalent, and then there's the other one that people might not necessarily realize that you need to solve. But at the end of the day, you're providing a solution. So that's essentially what entrepreneurship is all about, is providing a solution that meets a need in society. So let that be your aim, as in, you know, I want to solve a problem with whatever my innovation is. I like the fact that, you know, you're working on a team, because I think no one person ever has all the answers. So the earlier you start working together in teams as it relates to solving problems or providing innovations, when you come out of school, you know, forming those partnerships and those collaborations would be easier to understand, because you would have already had a taste of it while going through your studies. So, you know, love what you do. Don't make money your focus. Money is good, but money can be fleeting. And if you make money your ultimate goal, if it's here today and not there tomorrow, or as COVID has come to show us, does that mean you throw in the towel? So there has to be something greater than just the money that is pulling you into entrepreneurship.
Thank you.
So I think that's it. So what I would say is I wish you all the very best in your project. And I look forward to reading about each and every one of you and your innovations down the line.
All right, thank you very much. We definitely give you a feedback on how everything goes. Then it's now left for us to now be able to, what we've heard from you and things that to be able to develop a content. And AIM2FLOURISH is, like we said, is a UN program for sustainability goals, which is for the SGC goal for the to see how companies are ethically impacting the environment and using their businesses to impact the environment to reduce the climate problem and gas emission. So, and that is fantastically what you are currently doing. So, and I believe with this story that we've heard from you and with an addition from our end, we'll be able to write your story. We hope that we'll write it better than you have explained to us.
All right.
So, because it's going to be it's going to be a credit on our own part. And if possible, we'll win. And I believe this story is already giving me an inspiration that we're going to win. Because
great. I do wish you great success and bring home the prize.
No problem. Thank you very much. And
all right,
have
okay,
a lovely...
take care, all of you.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right.
You're welcome. All right, take care now.
Bye.
Bye, Ian.
Bye.
All right, bye.